All right, Jace Mouse, CEO of PerkSpot. Jace, thank you so much for carving out the time for us today. Much appreciated.
Oh, glad to be here, Tim. Thanks.
I have been looking forward to this conversation. Folks know Lucas James Talent Partners is the company that I founded. Between my corporate career and Lucas James Talent Partners, I was a sales consultant. And if folks go to the lucasjamestalent.com website, there's a picture of me giving a speech and just, we tried to get an image of me just speaking knowledge. And it happened to be at PerkSpot circa 2016, 2017, talking to the sales team a little bit, just a little workshop that I was doing. And it was such a good photo that we put it on the website. But we met years ago, and PerkSpot has grown since then. So we're going to talk a little shop today. Jace, just for the listeners that maybe don't know as much about PerkSpot or about your background, would you mind just kind of giving an overview of you and what PerkSpot does?
Sure. So my background, I've been in technology businesses for most of my career. Started not unlike a lot of people. I started actually out of college in Fortune 500, and I've kind of worked my way down to more entrepreneurial ventures over time. So I've had stints at State Farm Insurance, travel business called iExplore that moved on to partnerships with National Geographic, and then Cars.com and Orbitz, and then started a business called CapEx to help really change the way colleges and high school students connect. I'm really proud of that business. We just had an exit two weeks ago. And then PerkSpot as well here. And PerkSpot, I'm really proud of it. We save people time and money. And we do that by negotiating exclusive discounts for employees at large employers. We predominantly focus on the Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 today. And we go out and really take something that they'd like to do for themselves, but their primary business is something else, flying airplanes or making sick people well. We take over all of that work and make it really easy for those employers, the best-in-class employers, to offer a really great program. So the way we tend to think about it is, if your employees are spending money, we like to find a way to save them money. That can be as simple as things on a movie ticket, or the kids' school clothes to go back to school, or laptops this year, or things that grow from there. It can be new cars, mortgages, insurance, TVs, you name it. If people are spending money on it, we've got a team here that really tries to save them. So it's been a lot of fun to grow this business. I didn't start PerkSpot. Founder Chris Hill did. He and I met when I was leaving Orbitz, but I really wanted to focus on CapEx, and I thought there was a really great opportunity to make a big difference there, and did that. But Chris and I stayed in touch, and I was fortunate to join this business about 7 years ago as a CEO.
There's been a lot of growth since. So if I'm framing this up right, I'll just kind of repeat that back to you. When I think a lot of people think of employee benefits, it's of course like medical, dental, vision, 401k. You've created a platform to go out and seek partners that provide discounts in bulk to all of your clients, effectively all the employees at your clients or customers, and make that connection for them so the employees can see the benefit of all these discounts outside of the benefits that I mentioned.
Absolutely. So if you think about it, we all work for a reason, right? And it's to make rent, and it's to do other things, but there's also things we spend our money on, but also our time and where our passions go. And so this is one of the rare benefits an employee can offer that connects with an employee's passions. And so we always talk about the fact that employers have very diverse employees, therefore we need really diverse discounts. And so it's amazing that most employers will tell you that PerkSpot's their most popular benefit, even more popular than their healthcare plan. But two key things. One is, if you survey the employees, and when you do, you find radically different answers about why. And we love that. We're really proud of that, because those discounts took a lot of work to negotiate. And the other thing that's surprising for employers, because we're so popular, most of our employers are not actually paying any fees for the platform, which is a unique component as well.
Interesting. Okay, so you're not charging the employers an implementation excuse me, like an ongoing like subscription service fee, like a SaaS company would. Is it on a per use type basis?
Sure. The way we work is we can certainly charge fees if we if we needed to for an employer for some reason. But really the way it works best is we can go to these large brands that, want to connect with new consumers. We go in and lock in a private exclusive discount, something those employees can't get anywhere else. And then we also have a conversation with those merchants about tapping into their advertising budget and seeing if there's ways that we can tap into those budgets and fund the program on behalf of the employer. And so it's been really interesting. That's a unique approach. It takes a little bit of explaining with employers and merchants both. But it's been really successful for us. And also, if you look at a time like COVID, offering a benefit that didn't cost the employer money is also a really popular thing.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few products or marketplaces or services that, doesn't cost anything to the customer and provides volume to a partner. And it seems like you've kind of cracked that code in a huge space. There's a lot of companies in the US, and there's 500 companies in the Fortune 500, and there's 1,000 in the Fortune 1000. That's amazing. And I could tell you're super modest. You kind of went through your background a little bit. I mean, cars.com, Orbitz, and CapEx, these were all successful companies. And I know you played a part in that, but just being a part of those teams and starting whenever you started, and now what those companies have become, what are some tidbits or takeaways that maybe someone like myself or the listeners that haven't experienced that before, what were some of the patterns that you saw that led to some of those successes, either from a product, leadership, sales standpoint?
Sure. I'm really proud of where I've worked and the teams I've been a part of. And maybe I'll step through each because it's hard to pick one broad theme. It feels like I'd be doing a disservice.
I love it.
So if you'll hear me, if I think about a few businesses, State Farm, way back in the day, right? I was a fresh, newly minted college grad. I never thought I was going to leave the ranch in Oklahoma, but State Farm convinced me to do it. And there I just started to really connect with the fact that I was doing a job and part of a business, but we were really helping people. And insurance isn't a very sexy thing, but but if you spend a little time thinking about the people you're actually helping, that can be a powerful thing. In their case, they actually go so far as to, when there's a disaster, they will have trained employees across the company in advance to go and work call centers just to take care of policyholders. And I was one of the employees that was part of that program. So State Farm really invested in me, just making sure that I understood the value of these policyholders that are people. And I love that. And so I learned from very early in my career, no matter how big the company is, you can always connect with people, that there's really individuals that are driving that. And so I love it. And from there, when I came to Chicago, I didn't think I was leaving State Farm permanently. I just said, well, there's this amazing wealth of experience I could go get in another company. I'll be back in 2 years. My mentor said, that's great. But you can sell your house. I told her, I'm not even going to sell my house. She goes, that's great, but you can sell your house. And we'll put a pin in that story. But I went to iExplore, adventure travel business here in town, started by George Deeb. I was a deer in the headlights. Everything moved at a much faster pace. Things were just more fluid and dynamic, and the things that I did really mattered, right? There's less room for mistakes. And I owe a lot to George. I don't even know if I knew how to suck it in at the time. I was just learning so much about the way entrepreneurs work and things I didn't even know at the time, capital markets. Loved it. From there, I went to cars.com. That was a well-established, kind of well-seated business. Came out of the newspaper industry, so there was a lot of support behind it. And really there, it was really about how can we take a team and really avoid the bureaucratic side of things. Like, how do you not get complacent? How do you stay really ambitious and entrepreneurial and push? And there was the first company I really learned the value of, even as a technologist at the time, of connecting with salespeople and really understanding the value of the things that I was doing made a tangible difference for those people. And I got really excited about that. It started in a really bad way because we were really struggling to handle all the traffic and growth. And they needed somebody to take I don't know, I'll say blame, but we were really struggling as a tech team. These were days when you didn't just go order a new server from Amazon. You went and committed to $1 million from Sun Microsystems, and you waited 3 to 6 months for the server to show up. So it wasn't easy. And so I just said, I will go to the team. I will go to your sales meeting. Because Alex Vetter, who became ultimately the CEO, he said, "What's going on here, man? I just need to know, and you'll shoot straight." And I told him, he's like, can you tell that to my team? A little did I know, he brought me into the sales team and just said, it's like, look, we're going to fix this. And long story there, but I just learned a lot about how the impacts of everything you do in a business can really make a big difference. And so cars.com is probably the place where I just love to I learned to fall in love with salespeople, to be honest with you. They were the people who understood dealers, knew what the dealers needed in order to be successful in their business and feed their families. And that gave me kind of a passion for that. Orbitz was a really interesting time. We went through several acquisitions in the time I was there, and really a lot of great talent kind of worked in Orbitz and came out of Orbitz over time into Chicago. And at CapEx, it was a chance to build a business kind of from the start. And that was my first go at that. Even iExplore was kind of a startup, but there were already a good 10 or 20 people working on the business when I got there. CapEx was different. A few folks had an idea and kind of lined up the financing, but we needed to build a viable business. And that was the first time where I just realized in a startup, like, you don't get a lot of training. But in a startup, if you can really push yourself and push the bounds of what you're capable of, you have a tremendous amount of opportunity, because startups will trust you with things that large businesses would never trust you with. And that was a really fruitful time for me. Things that I had seen done before by others who frankly were far better at it than me, that I'd been learning over the years, I really got it to bring it to bear in an early stage business. And I tell people that to this day, if they're coming out of a large company, and we recruit people at PerkSpot to work for us that come from Chase Bank and much larger entities. And I tell them, this is the place to grow your career, because we'll trust you with more. And I really love that and was really proud of it. And then on to PerkSpot, which has been a really great journey with tons of fun people. I started when we had about 100 clients and about 6 or so employees, and we've just been growing from there. And that again just kind of brings a lot of it for me personally from my career to bear all at once. Of really growing and building a business and leveraging teams and sales and technology and connections with customers and members to bring it to a new level. So that's a long journey. I thank you for being patient there, but
it's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing. I always love to pick the background story of folks like yourself, because you're always going to take away little tidbits, and everybody can't have the same experiences as everybody else, and there's takeaways from all of our experiences. So PerkSpot was pretty small, at least employee wise, and then today, fast forward, roughly how many employees are there?
Yeah, so we've gone from about 100 clients to about 1,000 clients, and from that small group of employees, we've built to about 95 employees work at PerkSpot now. We provide service at PerkSpot. We have about 15 million eligible members for the marketplace. So
I would imagine, and this is a loaded question, that your role had changed probably pretty dramatically from when you had started 7 years ago to today. For maybe a first-time founder out there that's managing 6-10 employees or something like that, try to take yourself back 7 years ago. What did your role need to be? What were you focusing on? What was going on at the time? And then as PerkSpot progressed, how did your role change throughout the time there?
Sure. I think it was Brian for PerkSpot largely because I was proven to know how to solve technology problems and leadership problems, and I could do it in an entrepreneurial way. And you're right, like the contribution I make is radically shifted. And I think the summary is this: I tell people at PerkSpot this today. We succeed when we have 1 foot firmly planted in what we know how to do, and 1 foot planted in something new. And that's been very true for me. Case in point today, I've been fortunate to kind of spend a lot of time in every aspect of this business over the years, right? As we've kind of grown them and faced different challenges and opportunities. But ironically today, I don't spend a lot of time on our tech stack. And I knew enough early on in this business when I came, I recruited someone I'd worked with before and said, hey, you have a couple jobs. First is you have to rewrite the platform, and you got to do it piece by piece because we can't afford to do it all at once. That's your first job. Second job is you have to keep me completely out of the code. Because if I go there, that siren song, then I'm never coming out and this business won't grow. And So that was an interesting thing for me, right? I think when you're faced with some new challenges, your tendency is to want to go back to the places that feel most comfortable to you, where you know you can win, especially when you have a setback, right? You don't get that big client you were expecting, or you can't fill a certain key role, but you just have to keep pushing ahead. And again, keep one foot in something you know, but you've got to have another foot in the place that's where the biggest opportunity is. It's the place that's a little bit frightful for me as well. And that theme has just been consistently true at PerkSpot.
I can relate to this. We're 2.5 years into our business. We have 35 employees, team members, partners, and I remember when it was just me, I had to kind of create this vision of what I thought it would become, and try to get people to buy into that. And it's tough when you're super small. And I would imagine you and Chris had a similar vision for PerkSpot, but when you're at 6-10 employees, it's hard to see when the office is small and there's lack of infrastructure and things like that. How did you get by that and create that vision for bringing on great team members? I've met members of your team, solid leadership. How did you do that for some of the founders that are out there looking to do the same thing?
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'll start with this. When I came to the business, I didn't change anything for the first 3 months. I watched a lot. I helped a lot. I just learned how things were running at the time. And then, like every founder will do, I really thought about the things that are really going to be foundationally important to our success. And for PerkSpot, there's a lot of ways to do that. For PerkSpot, what I chose to do was I laid out a series of things that need to be true in order for the business to succeed. And at the time, they didn't feel true. They weren't true. And in a lot of cases, if you talk to some employees, they weren't even attainable, ever. We had employees like, well, this 100 clients is about all there is. Everybody has something. And this is about as big as we can grow there. So we should grow the business someplace else. That's an example. And so I just laid them out on the board, some really simple truths. Like, that I told the team, these may not feel true today, but we're going to work on this together to make them true for the future, because we all agree they matter. And they were fundamental things. Like, for us, I said, hey, the truth should be that our customers know us and trust us. PerkSpot is the source of great deals. And lots of kind of narratives like that. It's a great place to work. I'm getting better as a result of working here. And really laid out those foundational things. In my case, it was about 12, which you'd love to start with probably about 3, keep it simple. But regardless of the number, really just think of the things that need to be fundamentally true in order to succeed. And then that's focused enough. You can get an entire team of really smart, capable people to really hone in and focus there. And that's what we did. And we put them on the wall, and we just kept living those values for a long time, and then continue today. They've changed, obviously, the goals and the things that need to be true in the future, but that's still pretty core to how we work.
The great leaders that I've talked to, that I've seen, that I've studied, can see that vision, can get people excited about it. But I also think there's like a forecasting that you have to do. Like, okay, if we're going to double this year, we're going to triple in 3 years, we're going to be X in 5 years. What type of leadership do I need in place? How do I think about the org chart? How do I think about my role? And how do you kind of scale that up? And you've had this, the benefit of being a part of teams that have kind of scaled before. But you've mentioned before, you were a technologist, out of college. If folks check out your LinkedIn, Chief Technology Officer, technical leadership. Not to say this is few and far between, but you're a technical CEO. That has that in place. You've already mentioned, hey, I don't spend a lot of time on the tech stack, but how has that experience managing the tech side of the business helped? And then how'd you have to adapt to maybe other areas of the business that you didn't have as much, at least, leadership exposure to prior in your career?
Sure. A couple of things there if you look at different parts. When it comes to technology and product, I have a fairly good sense there. And so I'm a blessing and a curse as a boss, right? I know how to trust great talent, because I know it when I see it. But then when things go off course, of course, I want to be there too. And,
yeah, right.
A little bit of both. And, and I need people around me that can say occasionally, it's like, no, boss, I got this. And they don't say it often, but they say it infrequently enough that when they say it, I know I should pause. And we just go back to like, okay, well, let's anchor on what has to be true then, like where we're solving for, and let me back up. And there's all kinds of ways to grow PerkSpot, and I'll go do those. And so I do that in some of the places where I have a lot of experience, but I do them in other areas as well where we need to trust someone we bring in. And again, just always drawing on experience. With a sales team, I knew fundamentally what we needed to be true for a product in order for them to succeed. And that also helped, again, just to say, it's like, all right, look, technology and product can take us this far, and the rest has got to be, it's got to be you and it's got to be us. Like, we had to figure out a message that resonates. We had to figure out a go-to-market pricing strategy that works. We have to figure out how to overcome objections, because we can't just keep building new features and kind of new sizzle. Just I think that's going to carry us indefinitely. And not every salesperson's cut out for that, for example, but when you find the ones that are, they can get on board with that, right? And that's an example of what we've done. And I touched on tech and product and sales, but we've done that in marketing and user communications and kind of across the board. And it's just been really kind of core to us. And the other part of it I'll say is that for my style, my approach is I really focus on the fact that we should all be thinking like owners. And we put a lot of time and energy at PerkSpot into making that true. Not always easy to build an equity plan after the company's already gotten momentum. We were a little late. So that got really complex and difficult from a kind of a legal tax standpoint. But it was really important to us. And so what I mean by that, practical terms, even today at the scale we're at, and I tell people often, it's like, well, remember, we're PerkSpot first and our department second. And that's really important, that if someone in an individual department can't tell you why this matters for the broader company, or tell you the problem that a different department's facing and what changes it will bring based on their work, then you've got to disconnect. And as a leader, you got to back people up and really get them to focus there. And I'm fortunate that people we hire have been really great, and they're willing to sign up for that bigger, kind of more complex kind of direction and narrative. And it's been great because it really pays off for us, and just the caliber of people we can attract and just the caliber of opportunity we can present them with as well.
There's been a shift in, I would say, San Francisco, at least, of like the product technical focused CEO at more mature companies. It's either, the Twitters of the world or the Facebooks, where the person that was in the code from the beginning is still running the company, or like a LinkedIn that when they change CEOs, or Glassdoor, they put the product focused CEO in place. How do you view that shift in just the technology sector? Is there something there that a non-technologist like myself maybe doesn't know about how the market is set up and the need to really differentiate your product in maybe a crowded marketplace? Maybe educate someone like myself around that concept and how you see that trend.
Yeah, I'm a little counter-conventional there. I clearly think a lot about product and experience for members, and PerkSpot's no exception to that. We talk about, like, let's solve for, delighting our member first, and we believe the rest of success can come from that. But we don't take that so far as to say that's the only thing we're thinking about. Don't worry about the commercialization of it, the P&L, because again, to think like an owner, you got to see those things too. And so I think there's benefits in both approaches, right? As a leader, if you want to just simplify your message, it really does help resonate and carry, to say it's all about the product, or it's all about this, or pick a thing. But I think when you really want to hit scale and run fast and run in the right way, it pays to have people that really see the entire business and what it takes to succeed. So it's not easy for us to develop that in the people we have at PerkSpot, but I'm a big believer in understanding that. I also think market shift, right? We've been in an era where capital was freely available, still tends to be. And so profits and profit motives didn't really matter.
Right.
And I think we're still a lot in that season, right? The access to capital is still very much there. But all of a sudden, we do have to think about what it looks like to grow and commercialize a business, because we're hitting headwinds and challenges, right, on an epic scale. And so all of a sudden, having these muscles that can really think about how to pivot a business, not just the product, but all of the levers across it, is really valuable. Because product investments take a while to build, right? But there's a lot of other levers in your business, if you know how to use them, that can move far more quickly.
I think you bring up a good point, and maybe we could touch on this about PerkSpot. But, I've been in the Chicago tech ecosystem the last 5 years, and what I've seen is the typical playbook, right? You come up with an idea, you get an MVP in place, you get some funding behind it, but the tech roadmap is, a ways out. It's going to take a long time, but you need to sell something now. So leaders are in a position where like, hey, we have to sell this now. We have to play catch up. And then like the sales team's like, hey, here's what the customer's saying. They're not buying for this reason. The CTO's like, hey, I need some time to get this in order. The product person needs to like, prioritize what features and functionality, and then scale from there, series A, B, C, D. My understanding of PerkSpot is you didn't take your any outside capital until much like later in the story. Can you speak to that a little bit? Was there a sense of, hey, we need to get this commercialized first, or we need to focus on product and sales at the same time, maybe versus the standard playbook that maybe we see in the tech scene today?
Sure. I'm known for telling PerkSpot and reminding them that there's only one person in the history of PerkSpot who had to eat ramen noodles to make it happen, and that was the founder. He nailed it early. The problem to be solved, a way to approach the market that could work, and we certainly had to improve and refine that over time. But he really did nail that, and so I remind folks of that. That to be said, I joined without taking a paycheck, and so there was that element of like, okay, how do we get to a point where the flywheel starts to spin, or at least I feel like I'm not just building a hype machine.
Right.
And so from the earliest days of PerkSpot and my time, we've always been focused on the broader business and the success of it. And I'll say this just in simple terms. There's a concept out in the market called the Rule of 40, which basically says if you take a company's growth rate and their profit margin, add them together, if the total's 40 or more, that's a winner. And in PerkSpot's case, we have that. We've hit that point. We've actually hit it on both fronts by themselves. So to grow over
Perfect.
40% and to hit a profit margin number. So that's really exciting. Now we don't need to stay there. Like, this has given us a lot of opportunity in this season to really reinvest, ironically, in product. But not having to do it in a way where we're saying it's like, let's go find another 100 million and dilute every employee in the business just to grow product. No, let's take the profits we could generate from this business and reinvest them in a really smart way to build something even bigger. And that's the journey we're on right now. We've always had ideas about how we could do more for members and create a really personalized, unique experience. To know how to put the right savings in front of the person at the right time. And but we've also known that to do that at scale across millions of people, you have to invest in technology and product and process. So we're on a journey now of doing a ton of that. We started before COVID, and again, fortunately for us, we've had to pivot and shift a little, but we've kept that momentum going. It's gotten harder to keep it going, but we've done that. And what that's going to do is just really source our best discounts that are relevant to you, Tim, as an individual, right? Because what we found is we've gotten so good at negotiating discounts for people that we actually have the opposite problem now, which is so many, it's almost hard to find them at times. And so I'm really excited about that. Like, as much as we had to focus on the fundamentals of the business first in my time here, we're in a season now. We're much back to that kind of product-based focus, but we just get to do it in a lot healthier way. And frankly, for me, it's a lot more fun. Like, we don't have to be as constrained in our thinking maybe as other people did, or we
Sure.
don't have to sell it short. So that gets me super excited.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And the last kind of conversation point I want to touch on is just the Chicago tech scene. It's Fireside Chicago. We have a lot of, very pro Chicago technology leaders. I come from the human capital space. So the labor market in Chicago, it has to in the future be very technology heavy if we want to grow and continue. You've been around the scene for a long time. How has the Chicago technology scene evolved since your time here, and how would you maybe categorize it today, maybe in comparison to the coasts, for example?
A couple things. Some things have shifted and some things haven't. And I draw a little bit of experience of what I hear from businesses on the coast. access to capital's gotten a lot easier, and that's been true for quite some time. I touched on that. So that's different, right? You can really take a good idea and you can afford to find a runway that gives you a really long kind of runway to make it happen. So that's different than it used to be. But the thing that hasn't changed, especially here in Chicago, is we do know how to run really good, healthy businesses. And I hear that over and over when I talk to colleagues on the coast. I certainly hear it in the private equity world when they come and talk to Chicago businesses. They're like, well, we're coming because we know you know how to run a good business in here. I'm really proud of that. I think it speaks to our Midwestern roots. And so I don't think that's changed as much, but I do like that we're now getting the benefits though of the broader market as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I think, there was so much momentum coming into this year, and, there was a lot of funding, to your point, built in Chicago Inno, they're just staples for information around that. You can kind of see a trend of more access to capital, to your point, growth, some exits here or there. And then COVID hits, and, a lot of the jobs that were created by some of the San Francisco companies coming here have kind of halted or went backwards a little bit. There's been layoffs around Chicago. I'm seeing a huge pickup just from being on the recruiting end of things, but things kind of like stalled, unfortunately, as a result of COVID. Fast forward, we bounce back, let's say. What's the future of tech? You're a technologist. You've been a technical leader a long time. I think a lot of the SaaS plays, that there's been a lot of ideas that have already kind of been put into into motion already. It's kind of hard to kind of come up with a B2B SaaS application that maybe isn't out there before. What's the future if an entrepreneur needs to be coming up with ideas, needs to get creative? Is it data? Is it machine learning? Is it AI? Is it hardware applications? For a aspiring entrepreneur, some of the ideas have been taken. A lot of marketplace businesses. How do you see the future? Let's say PerkSpot wasn't around and you and Chris or others were looking to start up another company for the future.
Yeah, a couple of things I'll share there. Someone told me a while back, and probably been 2 decades now, said, no, there are no new ideas in business, no unique business ideas. I was like, no, there are. And I got to find that. Oh, someone's doing it. This will never work. Oh, they're doing it and it's on paper, but they're doing it, so it's not. That's silly, right? You don't have to do something completely radically different. You just have to do it radically better. And so when you take that more accurate view of things, there's a tremendous amount of opportunity. People were already doing things PerkSpot did. They just weren't doing it better, right? They were managing discounts themselves, either in an HR office or someone thought that was a technology play where they were just trying to build an intranet. And we just did it better because we took more things. We looked at everything it took to succeed in this space and made it easier for our clients to succeed. And by a lot of times that meant we took it on. So we take on the legal, we take on negotiating contracts, the marketing and communications to their employees, all those things that for them was a bigger lift. And for us, we're just doing it at scale. So that's an example. Now you asked specifically kind of where the tech play goes. And I, of course, don't have a crystal ball either. But I would say the biggest draw, the theme I think about going back to kind of technology, it's getting easier, right? And the biggest shift, and this shift started a long time ago, this isn't new, but it's that you don't need to build it all. You can assemble technology that exists either in open source or kind of other providers and go to market very quickly. And so I would say that's the biggest thing, is like that the longer you incubate on an idea in your mind, every month you delay 6 months, 12 months, the entire landscape has shifted, right? Because of all these additional assets that you can now leverage that didn't exist before. And so you have to make sure that while you're honing in on what you think is the one thing keeping you from launching your business, you've not got locked into the way the landscape looked a year ago. And I think about it all the time because we're doing a lot at PerkSpot around matching, as I mentioned, members and savings, our users and savings. And when we do that, that's a big lift, but we can leverage technology and AI resources and data that didn't exist even a year ago. We're doing work with very small companies now, and they're kind of tech products. That's like, wow, like And these people are super excited because they never expected their platform to be used by this many users and this much data.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really exciting, right? And again, like no one else out there was doing it because the platform wasn't ready. Well, guess what? That team had the capability to do it at scale. They just had never needed to before. And so for us to show up and kind of be creative with them a little bit is paying huge dividends. And so we're doing that in a couple different places. And I'm really proud of that. So, but as an entrepreneur, it's like the landscape keeps shifting, and that includes the resources available to you to put to work.
I love it. I love it. That's very encouraging for a lot of the aspiring entrepreneurs out there, the folks that are just getting started. COVID maybe was a little bit of a hiccup along the path, wasn't predicted, but we'll get past this for sure. Jace, I know you're a super busy guy. I really appreciate you carving out the time for us today. Lots of great takeaways. If someone wanted to learn more about PerkSpot, how can they do that?
Great. Well, we have a website, PerkSpot.com. We would love to help folks. We are in the business of signing up best-in-class employers and helping them have a best-in-class benefit. And we're also in the business of helping merchants and brands build more business. So whether that's just helping them kind of connect with more customers that they haven't met yet, or just even improving and launching new products. We're doing quite a bit of that on PerkSpot, of just kind of being a bit of an incubator there. So all those things are really exciting and interesting to us because honestly, every employee here, we're an entrepreneur at heart. And we all have a chip of this business. So we're all motivated to grow, and we want to help other people succeed too. So be happy to check out and talk to anybody that is interested.
Awesome, Jace. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.
All right. Thanks, Tim.